Hey everybody, we're gonna get started on our second dish, and this is gonna be so tasty and so impressive. This is gonna be a quiche, a vegan quiche based on and inspired by a spinach artichoke dip. So really impressive, especially if you're gonna bring it to the holidays as a nice hearty main course. So we're gonna get started on the base of the quiche. So instead of using eggs, we're using tofu. So I'm gonna get my food processor out. We're gonna make this really good and flavorful and then add all kinds of vegetables to it. So let's start with 1 block of tofu. And by the way, I should mention this is gonna make enough for 2 quiches. So if you only want one, you can just cut the recipe in half. So take a whole block of tofu, kind of squish it over the sink a little bit first to get some of that water out, and then just break it up and throw it in a food processor. Okay. And next you're gonna get a container of vegan cream cheese. They do make this stuff, it's not very expensive. So a container is about 8 ounces. And that's gonna help bring that flavor of a spinach artichoke dip, that kind of like creamy, tangy flavor to it. So use 1 whole container of vegan cream cheese. This is a teaspoon of garlic powder. Make sure it's not garlic salt, garlic powder. A tablespoon of nutritional yeast. And a 1/2 cup of almond milk. And that'll get everything blended together. Now, if you remember the tofu scramble from the first episode, you can actually use a lot of those same spices and vegetables, but in this case, we want to keep it more inspired to a spinach artichoke dip, so we're not going to use turmeric to make it yellow, we're going to keep it white. All right, let's get everything blended. Okay, so everything here is now blended. And you can take a look in there and see that it's like a very thick, creamy, creamy base for our quiche. So let's get a big mixing bowl, put everything in there. Okay, and believe it or not, this really does have a lot of flavor from the garlic and from that vegan cream cheese. This is one of those dishes for people who are afraid of tofu and think that it just is gonna look and taste like that big block that we started with. This is a really great creative way to use it. It's also really adaptable, so if you have one of those days where you need to clean out the fridge and get rid of some vegetables, make one of these. All right, so we'll get all of that filling out. And now we're going to get some of our vegetables chopped up and sauteed on the stove. Now obviously this is a spinach artichoke dip inspired dish, so we are going to use spinach and artichokes, and for the onion I'm going to use a red onion that gives it kind of a sweeter flavor. So get a red onion, slice it up. And right now I'm gonna work on the artichokes. So these are canned artichokes. They're not in oil, they're just artichokes from a can. I actually prefer them in this recipe because since they're canned, they're gonna get kind of that briny flavor and make it a little more salty. So the only thing you wanna be careful of is to not cut them into too small of pieces. Kind of, if you get a whole one like this, just cut it into 4ths or even halves. And that way you can get a nice big chunk of artichoke in there when you take a bite. If they're too small, they're just gonna get lost. So you can do that whole can. All right, artichokes are chopped. Now remember, we have that sliced red onion on the stove. It's been there for about 2 to 3 minutes in some olive oil, just getting really soft. And we're gonna add these next for another 1 to 2 minutes. And then take a great big bunch of spinach. If you buy spinach in a bag, use the whole bag. Why not? You have it. Remember that it breaks down in heat as well. So you can kind of rough chop the spinach before you add it, or just pull it apart with your hands. If you're using a knife, cut it right before you add it to the pan so it doesn't start wilting. And spinach only needs to be on the stove for maybe a minute, 2 minutes at most, depending on how much you're using. It's gonna really shrink down. Then we'll come back and add all of those sauteed veggies to our mix. Okay, the veggies are sauteing on the stove, and now while that's happening, we're gonna get a pie crust ready. Now you can make a pie crust, you can also buy one, just read ingredients of course, but a lot of times if you buy a pre-made pie crust, which will save you some time, in some cases money, you usually get them in twos, so that's why we're making enough for two. So here's a pie crust. You want to pre-bake this before you make the rest of your quiche in an oven for 15 minutes. Otherwise, sometimes the bottom can be kind of doughy and raw. So get our pie crust here and check on the vegetables, and we are just about finished. All right, it looks like our veggies are finished. So again, this is red onions sliced up in some olive oil with spinach and artichokes. So we have our pie crust here. We'll set that aside. That has been in the oven pre-baking for about 15 minutes at 350 degrees. And we'll just add the veggie mixture to the base of our vegan quiche and now mix everything together. Food smells so good. I don't know if it's the red onions or the garlic powder or what, but this smells great. Okay, and once everything is mixed in, you have your mixture all ready to go. Go ahead and pour half of it into each pie crust. So, all right, and instead of like really packing it down, it'll come out looking kind of flat. So just kind of tap it a little bit with a spatula, and that way it keeps it looking kind of puffy and full. All right, and get everything mushed around in there. And we are all set. So the oven is still at 350 degrees. We're gonna put this in there for about 30 minutes, and you'll see that the rest of the pie crust as well as the top of the quiche starts to get kind of golden brown. And that'll be it, and we'll be all set. Here we go, guys. This is all set, our spinach and artichoke vegan quiche. It looks so good. And we are gonna get ready because I have a guest coming over to try all of this food with me, so stay tuned.